Well, now it's time for episode number 20, and I'm really, really pleased to have alongside me here in the virtual interview room for this wonderful episode, Zach Sweeney, a man that I've worked on sim racing casting before. I think it was the World Series League GT3 a few months ago for Sim Sports Solutions. But Zach, firstly, welcome to the show. But for those people out there that don't know who you are, if you'd like to give everyone a little bit of an introduction about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm Zach Sweeney. I'm 17. I'm from the UK, and I've been doing sim racing commentary for the last about 2.5 years or so. I've been really enjoying it, trying to make a name for myself and move up. I've had the pleasure of being alongside the man himself, Alex Goldschmidt, a couple of times as well. It's been a lot of fun, and I just really enjoy cars, fast things, and understanding why they work as well. So yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. So my first question to you, Zach, is what's your story behind getting involved with regards to being bitten by the good old motorsport bug, and who was the main catalyst? Was it family or was it an outside source?
Well, I mean, my family have never really been motorsport fans. They're more football based. So throughout the majority of my childhood, it was go to the local club, play a few matches, do the friendlies, go to training, get the kit, whatever it was. But I realised sort of around 8 years old, I just didn't enjoy it. And to be fair, from a young age, Cars came out in 2006, which was the year I was born as well. So it was sort of one of the first films I was introduced to. It sort of became like a family thing because of that, because I'd started to watch it and started to enjoy it. I'd go to the Disney shop and I'd get all the Lightning McQueen cars and what do you want for Christmas, Zach? Oh, Lightning McQueen cars, all this stuff, sort of stuff. So I've always been sort of around that. I mean, up until a couple of years ago, I had Lightning McQueen bed sheets, and the only reason I had to get rid of them is because I had a different size bed. But we still have them, and we use them as spares every time we have a single bed sheet. So there's that. So yeah, it's always been sort of Lightning McQueen and things like that. So there's always been the inkling of it. But around about 8 years old, there was one of those little pop-up fairs at a local place, and the sort of the go-karts that you have, the underpowered ones, the ones that are one's really quick, one's really slow on that little oval that they send you around for 5 minutes for £8. I did that, had a lot of fun. I was like, yeah, this is something I want to do. So I went to my local karting track. I took part in their youth group, made loads of friends. I got all right for a little bit until I got big, and the weight compared to the little kids, because now I can't win at all because all the little kids are like half my weight and they're just flying down the straight. So not great in that aspect, but initially it was a lot of fun and stuff. I've always been around that in terms of the motorsport bug. But yeah, with the family being all football stuff, I'm sort of the odd one out, the one being into F1 and all that. I'm quite the quirky one out of the family, but wow, I'm the better one.
You know what? I'm exactly the same when it comes to family. Like, I'm motorsport mad. My dad will wax lyrical about Formula One, what's going on, until the cows come home. There's a running gag that I mention on this show that he calls Max Verstappen Verstappen. It sounds like a tablet. He sounds like a tablet as opposed to a two-time Formula One world champion, soon to more than likely become a three-time on the bounce as well. Formula One world champion with the lead that he's got over Sergio Perez and everybody else. But you mentioned about football. Now, my dad's a Fulham supporter. He's been a Craven Road fan from way back when. Now, you mentioned that you're more into F1 and motorsport and everything else, which is fair enough. But is there any sort of split? Is there a little bit of a divide there? Is there majority of the family with one team and someone's decided to become the black sheep of the family, so to speak?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've got my dad, three of my older brothers who all support Liverpool, and then the one who's he's Chelsea. He's a bit special. And then obviously when it came to me, and I'm like, oh, I love Lightning McQueen. I'm like, Chelsea's blue. That doesn't look like Lightning McQueen. Liverpool's red, so I'm gonna go with that one. I've always sort of been Liverpool, and then obviously as my brother, one of the ones that supports Liverpool, one of the normal ones, as he sort of grew up and stuff, he then signed for Stevenage, the sort of just the one below their main team. So I sort of supported Stevenage for a little while, because obviously supported my brother as much as I could. But yeah, it's always been sort of Liverpool and things. Again, I don't support football as such. I don't keep up with it. I don't really
Yeah.
know what's going on or anything like that, unless it's like a big thing and England are in the World Cup final, or about to bottle the Euros or whatever it is. I don't really care apart from that. But if Liverpool are winning, then jobs are good.
Well, we have to give a shout out to the Lionesses doing a great job in this year's FIFA Women's World Cup, getting to the final. But everyone has a unique story when it comes to being involved in commentary. What's yours?
Oh, well, I'd say it's bog standard. As I say, I've been around motorsport for a little while. Quite a lot of what I've been able to do has been sim racing and things. So as I said, with the friends I made from karting, we all jumped on PlayStation and we were like, "Oh, do you have Gran Turismo?" And we all sort of started playing Gran Turismo together and things. And there was literally one time, I ran to the toilet and I didn't make it back in time to join the race because for those obviously unfamiliar with Gran Turismo and how it works, you have the lobby and everyone needs to be on track when the race starts in order to actually compete in the race. If you're not, then you're just forced to spectate or leave the lobby and find a different one, essentially. Obviously, I wasn't going to leave because we all still had tons of energy on us and wanted to do more racing. So I was like, you know what? Let's have a bit of a laugh. So I jumped into the spectator booth. I just started screaming down the microphone, just having a blast with it, looking at my friends going side by side. It was a ton of fun, and I was like, I'm all right at this. I'm not dreadful. There might be something in this. I had fun, so I clipped it, put it on YouTube,
Yep.
and put it on Facebook, and then one of the community-based leagues on Formula One basically said, "We need a commentator. Do you want to come and do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." Obviously, community-based stuff. There was no payment or anything like that. It was just to come and have a bit of fun because for those sort of familiar with the Formula One scene, a lot of it is community-based. Just your run-of-the-mill guys, and they all come together after work or whatever and just have a bit of fun, but still want to have that competitive nature. Still have that broadcast and whatever. So I jumped on, did the F2 and Sprint Championship for a little while on a Friday and a Sunday, and then got to a point I was like, again, this is all right. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this. I'm getting all right at this. So I spoke to my friend Jack Trin, he's been around in motorsport for a long time. He's now racing in Division 1 British Supercars, and he's very, very good. But he, through that, knew Chris McCarthy, who, again, I'm sure most people do know.
Yes.
Very good commentator. He's done the Formula 2, Formula 3, Freca, whatever else he's done, probably quite a bit.
Yeah, because the funny thing was, there's a bit of a story because Chris and I go back to 2016. And Chris was the person that got me involved with Daytona D-Max in 2017, got me involved with Rye House, who I still commentate, but more on the pro kart side of things.
Yeah.
John Ratcliffe does a lot of the IKR stuff on the Sundays whenever their race meetings are. But Chris gave me the opportunity. He phoned me up. He said, Rye House are looking for a commentator to join me. And so we did the RHPK season finale that November, had an absolute hoot. We've been chomping at the bit to get back together to do it. I said, well, maybe one of these days, mate, it'll happen. Like us two big wigs, we started from Rye House. And Chris also gave me the opportunity back in 2018. I was due to do work for Daytona D-Max, but then European Road Tax came calling, and I've been doing that ever since. So big up Chris McCarthy. Got to get you on the show, mate. You keep on evading me. Keep on evading me. He's a good guy, but he keeps on evading coming onto this show at the moment. So hopefully we'll try and get him very, very soon. But yeah, like you were saying with regards to Chris, he sort of put the feelers out for you a little bit, didn't he?
He did. He basically said, I don't really know a lot about virtual stuff. I mean, I think he's done Le Mans Virtual, of course, but he doesn't know a lot about it. But obviously through Le Mans Virtual, he knew Lewis McGlade. If you don't know Lewis McGlade and you're in sim racing, where are you? You're living under a rock. He does everything.
Yeah.
And me and Lewis sort of sparked a bit of a friendship. He helped me out, gave me some advice. He didn't tell me to, he didn't just shrug me off or whatever. He helped me, took me under his wing of sorts, I suppose. Still am. Again, he's helped me get a lot of gigs. And the thing with Lewis is he's not horrible, but he's very stern. And if I do something wrong, he will tell me. One of my most vivid memories of this is we were on a Race Room ranked broadcast. And I was going for a point right at the end of the race, and the standings came up. And obviously what you usually do is when you see the standings come up, you hand it back so the lead commentator can go through them. I was talking over him for about 10 seconds, and he said, Zach, mate, what are you doing? I just got a flood of DMs when I was talking. He was like, stop. And then I eventually stopped talking. So he's very stern in that regard. But I'm grateful for it because it's really helped me to improve. And if I know where I'm going wrong, he doesn't sugarcoat things. He doesn't say, "Oh, you're doing really well though." I don't want that. If I'm doing something bad, tell me, and I can sort of try to improve it. So he's been doing that. He's been getting me some gigs. As you do, it's a very who you know industry. As anyone would know.
Yeah.
But if he's not available and he wants to give it to me, and then he gives it to me. If there's a gig that comes through and he's like, yeah, let's get Zach on it or whatever. He's been a big help, and well, hopefully now I can sort of be a bit more independent with it.
Well, let's talk about one of the most recent biggest highlights of your commentary career so far, because when Lewis was at ESL R1, powered by Aramco in Diriyah in Saudi Arabia, a certain 17-year-old joined Formula E Accelerate for the London E Prix finale alongside Cam Roger. Firstly, that must have been, I think that's your biggest highlight so far of your commentary career, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Again, you can see I'm smiling about it. I've got all the pictures printed off on my wall. The sad thing is I've got more pictures of myself and Cam on my wall than I do myself and my girlfriend, which is a little bit sad.
Oh.
But it was such an amazing experience. Again, to be able to say I got paid to go and do that was amazing. Just to go there and feel the atmosphere. And from a commentary side of things as well, it was really interesting because obviously usually what I'm used to is being sat here and just talking and just going off the voice of another commentator. But where me and Cam were, we had obviously anyone that was at the London E Prix you might know, but we were in the fan village. We had the stage. It was nice, like a little V. You had the sim rigs like lined up like this, and then we had this like 3-story truck thing, and me and Cam were right at the top. We had a little desk. We had our monitor that had the live feed and stuff on it, and then we could stand up and we could talk to each other. Standing up again is one thing, but it was so weird being able to see Cam and go off each other's body language and actually have a conversation with each other rather than just talking to a voice on a PC, if you sort of understand what I mean. So from that side of things, it was huge, but also just going onto the grid and watching the E-Prix from the grandstands and being like, hang on, I'm essentially being paid to do this. Like, what is life right now?
Exactly.
And then to go back to the hotel and go there and drive to London and know that I'm going there for work and being surrounded by all the people and commentating over such a large crowd. Because again, on top of the 3-story truck thing, we could see a lot. And they're right in the midst of the action, especially on the Sunday, because we had all the influencers and stuff. There was just must have been 150, 200 people just swarmed around us, and my voice was being on the tannoy, speaking over it, which was just amazing, so much fun, and a huge highlight. Not only as a sort of an opportunity to get my foot in the door or anything like that, but purely just to say I've gone and done it, and that was me and stuff. It was obviously a great clip to have in my showreel, which obviously doesn't hurt, but. It was awesome, and it's definitely something I won't forget for a long time.
Yeah, of course, along with sort of like, say, Formula E, Yumi and Cam were actually the trio that are the voices of the VMO TC UK, powered by VCO, which I've been involved with that championship since its inception. I think I've probably got the most amount of audio clips probably brought against me on that particular championship, and that's another bit to add to your CV. Of course, Race Room. You've been doing a lot of work with Cam and with Lewis as well. I've worked with Lewis in the past. I actually met Cam, Lewis
at Spa,
at Spa, which was I have to say, up until that point, I hadn't met Cam in person. I hadn't met Lewis, and this was before he had the very, very short, discerning haircut.
Oh, don't even. It's weird.
I was like this. I went, Lewis McGlade has just had a giant makeover. Someone's brought the shears to what is normally a very, very significant amount of hair.
Yeah.
But it's Lewis down to a T. But he's a great guy. He's very, very knowledgeable. If anyone has worked with Lewis at a LAN event or worked with him, you know how much research material he will bring. He won't bring, He won't have a laptop. He will either have one of these sort of, I'm going to grab this off my shelf because I have one as well. One of these, or he'll have an A4 binder with about 60 or 70 different pages of A4 of information about drivers. That is how Lewis does his job. And the attention to detail is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, I'm very much of I like it having it on a computer. That is how I roll because of compactness. But I will always have one of these black notebooks
Mhm.
by my side, especially with what's happening. I mean, are there any other highlights at all, Zach? That apart from those small time beginnings, shouting down a microphone at Gran Turismo over your mates, to now being at Formula E Accelerator. Of course, I think it was Scott Mansell that was doing the hosting for that.
Yeah.
From
Lovely guy, by the way.
Driver 61 gets a shout out on this one. Scott, we need to get you on the show as well. But any other sort of real things that sort of stand out to you apart from those moments that we just talked about?
Well, as you say, the race room side of things has been pretty massive. Working alongside Racebot TV as well, they've covered a lot of the iRacing special events. Obviously, Max Verstappen races in quite a few of those. So it was initially meant to be Sebring that I was able to commentate on him. Then he crashed out 3 hours in, so I didn't get to do that. And then it came to the Nürburgring 24 hours, and I was like, I'm commentating on Max Verstappen. This is actually all right. So I clipped it, put it on TikTok, got a couple of views because Max Verstappen's in the name. So doing that wasn't too bad. Standout sort of commentary moments. I mean, I also, alongside Lewis, did the FIA South European Cup on ACC towards the tail end of 2022, which was a fairly big gig for me. And again, I was privileged to be alongside Lewis for that because, again, we're talking a lot about Lewis today, but it's justified because he's one of those commentators that when you're in the booth with him, you just feel motivated and you feel like you get better purely by being with him. So I've learned a lot just from doing that, and it was a huge step. So yeah, I'd say just each and every single gig that I've been able to do has been a privilege. There's been a few standout ones, as I say, but yeah, I just enjoy what I do.
Brilliant. Yeah, so Lewis, a man who is a two-time VCO Simi Award winner. Arjuna, you've got to try and do him. You've got to try and level the playing field this season for the Simi Awards. Of course, we have to give a shout out to Florian Hasper, who I've known for over a decade from my days in DTM and now runs VCO Esports and, of course, is one of the people behind BS Competition. So, Florian, got to get you on the show, buddy. There's plenty of people that are still in the pipeline. Now, motorsport events are part and parcel of any motorsport fan in the UK worth their salt. What was the first ever motorsport event you attended, such as when, where, what was the racing, and did you go with anybody?
So it was November of 2020, I think, coming out of one of the first lockdowns. And obviously, I'm quite local to Snetterton. I'm about a 50-odd minute drive away. So me and my mates, again, the same ones that got me into commentary, essentially, we all headed down to Snetterton for the day. And that was really my first taste of being at an event. I can't exactly remember what was on. I think it was the Britcar Praga Cup. There was some random track day going on, a couple of caterhams, I think. Can't exactly remember what exactly was on because I didn't really understand it. Again, you go to these events, and especially sort of when it's not a British GT or a BTCC weekend, it's just the sort of the run-of-the-mill club championships and things. So we went and all watched that, and it was just a surreal experience because you get to hear the cars, you get to smell the smells, you get to be around all these people that are coming and joining in. And yes, it was freezing cold, but we all had a fun time. And yeah, I loved it. I've been back to Snetterton a few times since, and yeah, it's a great circuit. I'd love to do more. I'd love to go across the country and visit all the different tracks and things. Maybe go into Europe and do a few of those. Would be nice if it's part of my job to go and do that, but you never know. But yeah, it's just real life racing events are always top notch.
That's brilliant. Right, okay. Now, this is normally the part of the show where I talk about funny moments on social media, but because things have just been so damn busy, I haven't been able to find any on Zach's social media accounts. But, Zach, have you got any funny stories behind the scenes on an event that you've been on, whether it be at home or on site, where something funny has happened? You don't have to add anybody, add anybody on this, but is there a particular event or couple of events that stick in your mind where something ridiculous happened, whether it involved you or somebody else? Is there something you can bring to the party here on episode 20?
Oh, the pressure of trying to be funny. I've had a couple of moments where obviously my family have just walked in on a broadcast at some point. Because obviously my bedroom is downstairs. and my door doesn't have a lock or anything, so people are just more than welcome to just open the door. And even though I'm quite loud when I commentate, I'm not one of those monotone, the ones that
Yeah.
calmly talk it through. I like to get passionate. I like to shout, and my walls aren't exactly very thick, so they should be able to hear me, but they don't. So I've had just my family open the door, swing it in, Zach, blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, guys. A microphone isn't exclusive to one person. That's not how they work. They pick up noise. They pick up background noise.
Yeah.
So I'm there panicking, like, mute, stop, round off my point, wherever it is, and then go to say no. Or they'll come in when I'm on camera or something like that, and I'm like, oh, no, because then I have to look and tell them to bugger off, and then it'll look awkward. I'm on camera because I have to mute myself. Then you can't hear me. It's one of those things that I've never really been a big fan of. Or I've had my dogs run in under my feet. Conveniently, actually, it was the Formula Sim Racing. I think it was Pro at Silverstone in 2022. Where they ran in right at the end of the race, and that's one of the times where you want to get loud and passionate, but I'm there like trying to grab my dog and stop him from running under my feet or whatever, so I'm there like, and he comes across the line as my dog's under my feet. So yeah, I've not really had any standout funny moments in a commentary booth. I mean, we've probably had a couple of, me and Cam probably had a couple of moments at Formula E, but nothing standout. So unfortunately, I'm a little bit boring with that one.
You know what? That's
actually.
Go on.
Actually, when we were doing Formula E, obviously me and Cam, we've got a little bit of a difference in our heights. And the YouTube chat, because it's YouTube and it's like chats and things like that, people are ruthless. So my nickname for the duration of the Formula E stream was Little Dude, and Cam's was Big Dude. So we were just all the time through. We had a couple of audio issues on the Saturday, and obviously people in YouTube and Twitch chat were getting a little bit riley. So yeah, to be called Little Dude was a little bit funny. But apart from that, it's just been. I've been all right. I've been lucky.
Yeah. No, I think it's always good to tell people that it isn't always plain sailing behind the scenes, because you know what? I'm going to bring. You mentioned about canine companions, right? So, I've got a little funny story to tell you, folks. This is Toby, our little 11-year-old toy poodle. Hello, mate. Now, I was calling a race across the line. My sister is bringing my niece home from cheer, and this one starts whining, and he's scratching at that door there. Now, of course, there's not much cable travel between the headset jack and here. And I was like thinking... and he's crossed the line. And literally, because the good thing about the EPOS H3 is I put, Toby, God, you see, even on shows it doesn't go well. There's a bloop of the show there. That he started whining, scratching at the door, and I've gone like, I've looked at the clock, realised it's 9 o'clock. Sister and niece are back. My nephew's making all the noise down the hallway. I've had to quickly call it across the line and have muted, and then a Discord message going to the other commentator saying, just take us through the rest of the results because my sister's just got back. So I completely understand and sympathise with you when it comes to dogs and broadcasts. They say never work with animals and children, and especially when you're having to dog sit. Doesn't always work out the best way, especially if they run under your bloody feet. But there we go.
Yeah. And another one, actually. I was, before I got my NPC, I was upstairs in my brother's room because he had one. And it was the Race Room Bathurst event. And my dog, he's your small chihuahua type dog. He sat right outside. As soon as anyone opens the door, it is just rah, 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 all the time in such a high-pitched squeal. So I'm sat here, there's a wall, the door is like here. So he's sat at the top of the stairs here. And you can clearly hear it. And because, again, I was not as experienced at that time, I didn't know what to do. So I just tried to awkwardly keep talking over it. But obviously you could still hear it because it was quite loud.
Yeah.
So that was one of the learning moments of if something happens, shut up and let the other commentator deal with it. That's why they're there.
Exactly.
But yeah, apart from that, it's been all right. But just, family and dogs, they're annoying when you're on a broadcast.
Yep, definitely. I've heard a few stories about other broadcasters being caught on air shouting at somebody.
Don't even.
I'm not even naming names on that one because some members in the sim racing community will know exactly what I'm talking about.
I think we've got the same one in mind.
Yes, and we'll talk about that after after this has been recorded. Very, very much the case. But next question, Zach. Favorite racing drivers, be it in sim racing or IRL?
Yeah, well, um, uh, we'll go back to Formula E. I'm going to milk it as much as I can because it's quite a big thing for me.
Feel free.
The
I milked it as much as I could when I was in Berlin doing the German-speaking circuit commentary. So
exactly.
whilst Cam and Lewis were in the broadcast centre in London, whilst I actually bumped into, of all people, who wasn't actually competing that weekend but ended up winning the professional version of it, Mitchy Hoyer from Burst Esport.
Again, I've met him. He's nice, lovely guy.
He's a top boy. Top boy is Mitchy. And then he realised he said, "You're German, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." So he switched from English straight to German, like on site at Tempelhof, which is he kind of forgot about that one, but it's a good story I've got to talk about him in a short while, which is really, really funny. But yeah, like you're saying, going back to Formula E for the London finale for the Accelerate side of things.
Yeah, so obviously it was a LAN event, so all the esports drivers came down and stuff, and hadn't met any of them. Hadn't really spoken to any of them at all. But obviously with Cam's affiliation with Burst, we had Jane Simoncic and David Mrocek and Mitchy Hoyer all on site as well. All three of them won a championship on the day, so really good stuff for Burst. Jane won the overall, David won London, and Mitchy won the influencer side of things. And David and Jane were just lovely, lovely people. So nice to talk to. David made sure I got home safe and stuff because I left quite late from London, and obviously it's quite a long drive back to Norfolk. He made sure obviously I got home and stuff. They're just fantastic drivers, and especially on the R Factor 2 side of things, they are so unbelievably quick. So sort of from an esports side of things, probably David and Yerne. From a real life perspective, I'm not the typical Max fan of I hate Lewis Hamilton, blah blah blah, because I've seen those people. I'm not one of them. I've just always really liked Max and sort of loved how he doesn't care. He was that person to give it to Mercedes over the few years, and now to see him do really well. I don't like necessarily the racing that's happening because of the dominance, but I'm happy to see the win count go up and the championship count go up, if you know what I mean. So I've always sort of been a fan of Max Verstappen, and a little bit earlier on, I obviously spoke about Jack Tritton and things. He, gave me a lot of advice when I was doing karting and things, and he's just again a lovely guy, so funny. Whenever he's in a room, he always lights it up. And now, as I say, when he's been doing his karting, he won the Super One Rotax Champion Senior Rotax back in 2020, and then he jumped into a superkart for I think he started in 22, and he won the 125 Open Championship, and then also he won the O Plate, and I think he became British champion of 125s as well. Now he's in the Division 1. Anyone who's unfamiliar with not sidecarts, he also does sidecarts, but also in supercarts, go and watch it, because it is essentially a go-kart mixed with a Formula 1 car. They are insane. The engines that they've got on them, the torque delivery, you're sat on the floor and you weigh maximum 200 kilos. They are rapid. So yeah, Jack Tritton, I've always supported him. So Max, Trit, Yerne and David are my four.
Yeah, the Motorsport UK British Supercarts Championship, folks. These carts can do north of 135 miles an hour. They can actually do 140
140,
plus.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen laps where drivers are doing nearly a ton 50, and their arses are millimeters from the ground. So Jack Tritton, you've got a lot of respect from me, being a karting commentator anyway. Yes, doing the old Seb Vettel quote right there. Well played. Have you ever been starstruck, either meeting or talking to a race driver or a personality, whether it be meeting them in real life, or if it's like being a sim racing commentary, that there's been someone that you've sort of thinking, I've followed this guy for so long, I finally get the chance to talk to him. Has there been anyone that's made Zach Sweeney starstruck? Come on, lay it down for us.
Well, I mean, speaking to Jaroslav Honzik, better known as Yarde, for the first time was quite cool, because I've watched his streams for a while, and commentating on the GT Omega Challenger Cup, he races in that, and I've given him a couple of interviews on the podium. He's such a lovely guy. He comes in, and he's smiling, he's chatting, he's upbeat, and he's happy, and he's like, oh yeah, our race went terrible, or our race went really good, and he's laughing, he's joking, and he's there, and yeah, he's a lovely guy. Apart from that, I'd say, again, it's a bit weird saying this, because in essence he was my colleague, but talking talking to Scott Mansell for the first time, it was like, hang on, this is Driver 61. He's got 1 million subs on YouTube. He's driven Formula One cars. He's quite a big deal guy. So I was really looking forward to meet him and stuff. Again, so down to earth, so humble, such a lovely guy. And great to meet him as well. And I was just like, he's my colleague for the weekend. Like, what is life right now? It's amazing. So yeah, meeting Scott. I mean, anyone else? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Sergio sent a camera. He
Yep.
is affiliated with Burst Esport a little bit. Did some of their Le Mans virtual stuff. And obviously races for Neo 333 and Formula E. So he come down to speak to Yerne, and then obviously by that extension, I was sort of talking to him. I was like, hang on, this is a Formula E driver just come down and started speaking to us. And then he invited us into the garage and things, showed us the car, and yeah, that was again not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily starstruck, but it took me aback a little bit. I was like, this is really surreal. Like, this is actually happening right now. So yeah, I'd say those three. It's been all right. Yeah.
As you know, what for someone who's like made significant inroads, and as you said when we talked about Lewis McGlade, who many think is the GOAT of sim racing commentary, and you know what, he deserves that title. There, and you and I both know that us commentators, there are people that say that you're my favourite or they're my favourite or whatever. Everyone has their own opinion, and you know what, I'm not competitive about getting gigs over other people. I just think that if people get the gigs, kudos to them. I was just like thinking, I was wondering who was going to be alongside Cam at Accelerate for the finals, and to see you alongside with him, I thought, you know what, that young man has finally got a well-deserved break. You know, you've like everybody else in this game, you've got to have some skin in the game, but there is always an opportunity that presents itself when you least expect it, and that's exactly what's happened with you. I mean, I did, as I said, Formula E Berlin for the sports presentation as the German-speaking commentator, and it was really funny, like the amount of people that were coming around to me, because I'm actually going to put a picture of me when I was in the commentary box at Berlin Tempelhof with the brightest Caribbean-style hoodie that Formula E, I think, had on their merch that weekend, and it was given to the person with the biggest personality in terms of the voice, and people were coming up to me asking for selfies, which was, I think, the most surreal thing. And
you've made it.
Well, it was also the fact that people actually mentioned me on social media, like Instagram. I think there was one particular one where that weekend in Berlin, it was the first time that the Hankook Ion tyres had been put through wet weather conditions in qualifying, where we had Freins and Muller on the surprise Abt Cupra front row on Sunday for round 8 of the championship. And I still remember the goosebumps that I got as I was watching the main feed, watching the timing, and like the people were coming up to me and they said, "Oh, you're the commentator. Can we get a selfie?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it wasn't the fact of milking it; it was surreal, but it was a pinch yourself kind of moment, a bit like you had at Accelerate for the finals at London. Inspirations for commentary. Now, we've mentioned Lewis McGlade, so we can probably tick that one off the list. Straight away. Are there any other like IRL or sim racing commentators that you've listened to or that you've worked with that have really sort of helped inspire you and motivate you forward?
Well, I mean, part of befriending Lewis, I also met Cam, Leary, Arjuna Kankapati, all of those sort of people, and you know we've all made friendships in this business. You know, not only is it sort of the name of the game is to make as many friends as you can, essentially, but also you meet people that you wouldn't usually have done because that's the beauty of social media. That's the beauty of online, is that you can talk to whoever you want whenever you want, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks to that, I've been able to have conversations with all these people, form friendships with them. So I'd say Ewan and Arjuna are also up there because they're people I've worked with a lot. They're people I get on really well with. We work well. Cam as well, obviously he's there. So they're sort of, we always push each other to do better. We always help each other. We always we can't do this gig, so let's get someone else to jump in and fill the shoes, or if something goes wrong, we're always there to support each other, sort of thing. So I'd say those three are definitely up there, but also in an aspect, almost everyone I've worked with, I've been able to take something from. So whether it be, someone I've worked with is really good at delivering information, I'm like, cool, going to go with that. If someone has a particular phrase, I'm like, cool, I'm going to try and do that. If someone's got a certain personality about them, I'm like, okay, yeah, that works. That gets the viewers engaged. I'm going to try and take a little bit from that as well. So sort of there's no standout one person, purely because in an industry where you integrate with so many different people, and as you say, we all have our sort of different styles and things. Someone is more passionate, someone's more informative, and everywhere in between. It really is a vast spectrum of commentary, and again, they are going to tickle to different people's fancies, but a big thing is being versatile and being able to do all of that and encompassing all of that in one thing and over the course of one broadcast, depending on the time and the place in said broadcast. So being able to sort of take bits and pieces and sort of try and craft my own style from it has been able to sort of inspire me to get better and meet new people and find more stuff out. So yeah, not one person, but all the countless people I've been fortunate enough to work with,
including myself as well. And
absolutely,
it's like you say, we are always as commentators or casters, whichever way you want to put it, folks. It doesn't really matter because it's effectively the same thing. That we all have. We don't sort of hoist ourselves up by our own petard, so to speak, but we put ourselves at a level where we think, okay, right, that was good. But you look back at the broadcast and say, I might have been able to do that a little bit better. And it's like with me, say for instance, when you welcome everybody, there's like there's some people like Dan Pepples, Paul Jeffrey, who needs a shout out as well, the voice of TCR Europe and the Kumo TCR World Tour that has just been in Uruguay this weekend. So well done, Paul. He's also the voice of the Lamborghini The Real Race and at some point SRO Esports as well, alongside likes of Lewis, likes of David Addison, David Christie, amongst others. Angus Fender has made some appearances on that as well. Angus Fender, real life racer, and also BS Competition Sim Racer. And yeah, like the amount of people that I've worked alongside where I've learnt so much, like I've picked things up from Lewis, I've worked with Ewan multiple times before as well. It just goes to show that we are all on an evolutionary chain when it comes to developing our own skill set. And I like to tell a story, but then when I need to get excited, the diaphragm does definitely get used. I think the amount of times when you've messaged me and saying, well, if you ever need me to cover, give me a shout. That's what I love about young talents like Zach, where they are not impatient. They are looking for that opportunity. And, you're constantly evolving in your own right. Okay, you've got a lot to go, a lot ahead of you to come. I mean, considering the fact that I am more than double Zach's age, which is, it's nothing to be embarrassed about from my perspective, because when you're the older person, the elder statesman, so to speak, in terms of age, you may not necessarily have a characteristic that a younger commentator like Zach will have going onto a broadcast, but everyone learns from everybody. And that's a really good point to pick out here, folks, because we learn from each other. We learn, as Zach rightly put out with the points that he was mentioning, that how we all strive to do that a little bit better every single time. And you're only as good as your last performance. Am I right, Zach?
Absolutely, because again, with every broadcast, you put your name onto the line. You introduce yourself. I'm Zach Sweeney. I'm Alex Goldschmidt. And immediately, this is, I have to perform because it could be my career on the line. You do not know who is watching that broadcast at that time. And that could be the broadcast that you think, someone really important who has this gig coming up is watching. You need to be it might not be. It could just be 10 people are going to watch. They're not going to care. They're going to go to bed late that night or whatever and not care. Or it could be something really big, and it could be that moment. So you always have to be delivering. You always have to be at the top of your game. So you again, as I say, you never really know. So it's all about striving to be better. I always try and learn something new from each broadcast. It could be as simple as how far away my microphone is, how I'm sat, how many drinks I have throughout the broadcast, whatever it is, how I can time when I run to the toilet. Something, even if it's not directly correlated to how I'm portraying my voice, it's something I'm going to try and learn, because the next time it could be that moment I have that break. It could be the pivotal moment in my career. So again, it might not be that deep, but it could be. And that small slither of a chance is enough for me to want to strive to get better.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's like with regards to, for those wondering, a little bit of history is starting to extend at the moment. And Zach, you're the first person to know about this
Oh,
because at the time of recording this, this news has not gone public, folks. But I can confirm that for 2023, between October the 13th and the 15th, at the 2023 ADAC Sim Racing Expo, I am back as the lead commentator and hall reporter once again. So Zach is the first person to actually hear this on the show, as you folks are as well. I first came into contact with the Sim Racing Expo because of a mutual friend who's also been on the show, Yusuf bin Suhail, got in touch and said, hey, there's this Sim Racing Expo, and I'd heard about it before. I'd watched it a couple of times with the likes of Will Vincent, Connery Maddock, Jake Sperry, having been on the broadcast for the ADAC Digital GT500. Said, yeah, they're wanting another commentator, so I recommended you. And so we did the Road to the Expo, which was eventually won by World's Fastest Gamer, James Baldwin. Jardier was also competing in that. So for 2021, we did the build-up. We did the qualifying races. I think it was at Monza and at Spa. John Hindor ended up from RSL, Radio Show Le Mans, ended up doing the Digital GT500 and the Professional Trophy finale, but did it remotely because that was the second year of the COVID-19 pandemic. But then 2022 came along. They went, we want you as the lead commentator, and I'm now glad to be going back for a second year. Thank God it's not in December, right before Christmas, so it won't be snowing or whatever outside. But yeah, I'm going to be... it's like you say, you being in the right place at the right time, and they wanted someone who had the combination of the real-life experience, who could command an audience, but could also really help to tell the story. And, I mean, think of it this way. I was only just over 2 years into my sim racing commentary career. And I'd started all the way back with the Team Brit Summer Series in May 2020 when I was at a loose end. I was on furlough, didn't know what was going on, and it just sort of spanned from there. So like you said, Zach, it's right place, right time. We go to our second from last question now. Your top 3 moments in motorsport that you have watched that have involved other commentators on the broadcast that stick mainly in your mind. Your top 3 on that one, mate.
oh well, watching some of the ESL stuff, I can obviously I wasn't necessarily involved in that, but watching James Baldwin and Marcel Chinchik go side by side into the NGK chicane at the Nürburgring and come to blows, because at that time I think it was Chinchik who was in sort of finalist mode, champion mode, whatever it is, and then when they won. So for Baldwin, that was a very pivotal moment for him. He just completely sent it around the outside, and to hear the passion in it might have been, I think it was Lewis and Ewan in the commentary booth at the time, and to just hear what they were saying and the passion they brought to it and how much it meant to them, because again, they were at a LAN event. They had an audience to cater to, so they had to be even louder to hype them up of sorts. So that's one of them. In regards to anything else where sort of I've been able to be sort of taken aback by it, I've again working with Cam on Formula E, looking with Jerne Simoncic and Lucas Müller going side by side. For anyone really familiar with the London E Prix, it's a tricky circuit to get past, right? It's a tight and twisty one. So on the opening lap, you had Jerne Simoncic, who was looking to maybe win the championship, definitely to win the overall, with Chinchik over in Saudi Arabia doing his thing. He just completely sent it around the outside of Lucas Müller, and they went too wide until I think it was the exit of turn 9, where you then lead yourself onto the back straight. They were side by side for that entire time, and that was so much fun to look at, to commentate on, to get the goosebumps for. Because again, there's moments in commentary where you don't necessarily fake the passion, but you sort of upsell it a little bit. That was one of those moments for me where it's like, oh my god, like this is actually happening. That is huge. And then to be stood next to Cam and he's giving it his all, and then I'm switching over and giving it my all as well. It was huge. And then obviously to have the crowd behind us, it was massive. And then I'm trying to think of the third one as well, because you always have your stand-up ones, but you don't really remember 2 and 3. But I guess sort of with I'm just trying to think again, because I've had moments actually all the way back in my commentary career. It wasn't necessarily a top moment, but it was definitely a funnier moment. It was one of those standout moments. It was me and Ron Squire on a broadcast all the way back when I first started commentary, and it was a Formula 2 race at Monza, and you had a car that into turn number one just completely sent it on the brakes and was way too deep, locked the rears, went sideways, and all you could hear, because Ron had already obviously moved away from his mic or whatever, both of us weren't exactly on the best quality of mics either, because again it was quite early on in the career and whatever,
Yeah.
didn't really invest the big bucks, so I just had this little stand microphone. I'm there shouting, trying to give it my all. And then as the car cuts across the grass, you just hear the loudest scream, but the faintest scream as well. Like, you could tell it was loud, but because it was a bad microphone, it was quite quiet. So the most cartoonish and comedic scream from Ron Squire in the background as he leaped over the grass was something. So there was a three standout ones, yeah, for me.
So Ron Squire did a bit of a budget version of Mark Webber when Lewis Hamilton went
Yes,
straight
exactly.
on a Baku.
Literally that scream.
Oh
That
no!
scream was what he did.
Oh dear, that's a meme
Yeah.
that's going to last forever. Mark Webber screaming like a seagull wanting some chips and just going in full attack. Right now, penultimate question, Zach. Future goals on where you would like to be, let's say 5-10 years down the line in terms of commentary aspirations. Where would you like to see yourself in terms of commentary, be it sim racing or IRL, buddy?
Well, obviously the big aim is, to make a big name for myself, be Zach Sweeney, that person that goes to the events, and I don't not necessarily, I guess, own sim racing, but sort of have myself established in that regard and get all the big gigs, and not necessarily maybe for the money of it, because obviously it goes without saying there is a little bit of money in sim racing and things, but also just for the enjoyment of it, being able to do more Formula E, essentially, not necessarily Formula E specifically, but going places, calling that my job. That's the sim racing side of things. Then into IRL. Whether it be circuit commentary or broadcast commentary, whatever it is, that's the aspiration. That's where I want to get to. As long as I can sort of call this my job, and be at a racetrack and be at my job. I mean, as much as I enjoy doing my apprenticeship and things, being able to commentate on really fast cars for a living and meeting all these people would be an awesome goal. But sort of as a subsidiary to that, I suppose, is I want to be able to give back. Because I know full well I'm in a very fortunate position. A lot of people have worked a lot longer than me to be in a little bit of a lower position than me on, I guess, the sim racing hierarchy. And I that is part and part thanks to Lewis being able to sort of fast track me into the paid gigs and the contacts and things. So sort of when I get big enough, I'd like to be able to give back and find my own Zach Sweeney to bring up in the ranks. And be able to give someone else that same opportunity that I was able to have when Lewis did. I mean, part in part, I guess I'm trying to do that with who I can when I can now. Kelsey Gill, who I suppose you'll be familiar with from the JPB side of things.
Yes.
He was racing in the league that I first started on. He then wanted to become a commentator. So where I can, I got him into the TSRC PC GT3 series that we do on JP Broadcasting. And then got him into James Parfitt, got him a couple more paid gigs through that. Again, similar to that with Dara Thacker, who is someone Lewis introduced to me. And where I can, I've been trying to help him, give him some advice, albeit maybe... Again, I feel awkward giving people advice because, again, it's coming from me. What do I know? But where I can, I'd like to try and nurture him and help and then give him some gigs. So, I mean, I've got him onto the FSR Pro Championship and the Academy Championship, which is a nice low-pressure environment for him to sort of hone his skills and stuff. Literally copy-paste what Lewis had done for me. So while I'm doing it I suppose on a small scale now, I'd really like to be able to do what Lewis did for me a few years down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been... in my commentary career since I think it was around about 2019, people were asking me advice, and I'd say, well, it's not the case of trying to be able to give people the opportunity. It's about giving them advice that I have followed myself, which I have found that has worked, like knowing the right people, being in the right place at the right time, knowing your craft, and the main one. Well, there's two main ones I live by. The 7 Ps. Piss poor preparation promotes piss poor performance. And first impressions lost. Those two are the ones that I really, really stand by, because if you don't do your due diligence, I mean, for instance, I had a call. There was a call in the JP broadcasting the other night, which was about anyone wanting to do some Gen 4. And I instantly answered the call. I said, "Yeah, I'm up for doing it." I'd just done IGP Fun League with James at Detroit, which was chaotic. It was a bit of a cluster at times, but it was a really, really good race. It seems like every time Jesper Sandström comes back to that championship, I'm on comms and he goes away and wins it by a country mile. 18 seconds at Belle Isle is a country mile in a Delaria Formula 3. But it was a case of, we had an hour to prep. I was working alongside the Aussie legend, now based out of Panama, Mr. Dean Biggles. So it was the first time casting alongside him. We literally had an hour, and the league were really, really impressed that a Brit and an Aussie could pull off a NASCAR Gen 4 broadcast. And we just went with it. We just had a laugh. There was always the good old vernaculars when you're giving, like, say, it could be, if he could be, as soon as he gets past him, he'll be past him quicker than you can say the word jump or rat up a drain pipe. The eulogies that us Brits and Aussies like to give. De rigueur. I mean, it just goes to show, like, I've had people that are in the industry that have worked on one particular field, and a couple of them have asked and reached out for help. I have to say big shout out to Ash Vanderlei. She got in touch with me, and I said, you know what you need to do is, whoever you're talking with, you tell them what you're worth. You make a value that you know you're worth, and say, this is what I bring. And show reels are a big part of that, showcasing. Like for me, I've done TCR UK this year at Croft, which was an absolute blast. Really enjoyed doing that. So yeah, like I say, it is about trying to help others, not necessarily pushing them, saying, look, here's a gig, I can't do it, I've got this, you do that. Because, I always find that if I try and give people an opportunity and they squander it, I feel that they've let themselves down, but then they've let me down at the same time. So I would rather say, look, this is the advice I'll give to you. But we come to the final question. And what I haven't told you, Zach, there is a little bit of a twist to this one, but it's a good one. It's a good one. The final question is, if you had no budget, no glass ceiling whatsoever when it came to financials on this, which road or race car would you decide to drive? And next of all, where would you drive it?
I mean, on iRacing, my favourite car is the IRO4, the Formula 4 car in iRacing. I love that car to bits. I've not really had the opportunity to drive it as such because I sold my sim recently. So I've not really had the opportunity to drive it much on iRacing because it is a money pit. One that I wasn't too interested in falling into. But
True.
It's such a fun car. And obviously, last year I was involved in the Rocket Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK, which, for those unfamiliar with it, is the same competition that saw Deegan Fairclough take to British F4, and he's doing really well. So to be involved in that competition, albeit 30 seconds off him, I was there. All right. I've forgotten about, but I was there. It's just a Formula 4 car. It just seems so much fun. So I think I'll jump into an F4. See, I want to say Snetterton because I know people hate Snetterton, and it's his local track, it's whatever. It just seems like such a fun track to drive. You've got the long Bentley Straight. I think it's the longest straight in the UK.
I think so.
And you've got so much time spent flat out. It's just a fun track. I also really like sort of the undulating track. So maybe I'd go for a trip through the MSV tracks at the UK, Cadwell, Alton, Knockhill, all the fun UK club style tracks. There'd be a lot of fun. That's a race car. I want to say my road car as well because I've fallen in love with it. I've fallen in love with my road car. I've passed my driving test a couple of months ago. The 23rd of May was when I passed my driving test, just over a month after I turned 17, which I was really fortunate to do. And in January, I was so excited because obviously I'm this 16-year-old boy. I'm like, oh my god, I can drive in a few months. I've got money from commentary. I want to buy my car. So I'm looking on Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, is this still available? Is this still available? And I found this 2002 1.9 TDI Mark IV Golf. And I was like, she looks beautiful. And I was like, it's a PD130. They're really reliable. They're awesome cars. She looks retro. She's a bit scuffed up, but it wasn't from me, so it's fine. It's fine. She's 21 years old. She's older than me, so I can forgive that. She's a reliable car. She's a 1.9. She's got a turbo. I was like, this is my dream to have. Obviously, she kills me every month in insurance because it's a 1.9 and I'm a 17-year-old boy, and insurance companies think I'm going to be bombing it up Yarmouth seafront with, to purposely kill the nans in their micras. But it's a fun car, and I'd love to be able to have the money to restore it a little bit. Obviously, do the body work, get some fun stuff in it. Be able to pay for the insurance because it's a glass ceiling, no budget, all good. Can do what I like with that regard. And I'd just like to bomb it around tracks. Again, it's just a fun little car, a little hatchback. Yeah, I'll take my little 1.9 Golf round.
So is that a GT TDI then?
It's the bog standard one, I think. Just the normal
has it got
TDI.
Steelies on it or alloys?
I think it's alloys. They're all right.
Now, I'm bringing into my Volkswagen knowledge here because when that car would have been brand new, I was working as a weekend dealer host at my local VW dealership in Colchester because I'm not too far from where Zach actually lives. And Snetterton is one of my favourite circuits. I've actually commentated around there as well, where you've got like Agostini's, you've got Wilson's, which is now named after the late Stefan Wilson, who unfortunately perished a couple of years ago in IndyCar. You've got the fantastic right-hander at Riches heading into Wilson's. You've got the Bomb Hole. You've got Coram. It might be a flat plane circuit, but there's so much undulation, and it's a hidden gem. So I would 100% side with you on that track because that is an hour and 20 minutes from, if I walk out the door here from Manningtree, get in the car, it's an hour and 20 to Snet. We're going to go single-seater route on the race car. So you say the F4 car, so the IR04 from iRacing. I'm going to go with an old-school one. The car that was de rigueur in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship that in 2014, a certain Esteban Ocon won the title. And who was third in the championship standings? A man that halfway through that season would become a Red Bull Junior and then go to Toro Rosso to Formula 1, of course, Max Verstappen. The Dallara F312, which had teams such as Van Amersfoort. You also had Prima Power Team. Other drivers that have raced in that championship, Lalo Marcello, and Danny Juncadella. Juncadella is a previous champion on that side. So the Dallara F3112 at Snet. Now, you've said about the the TDI 130 PD Mark IV, which unfortunately met its demise when Euro 5 emissions came in.
It's ULEZ compliant, though.
It is ULEZ compliant, but they couldn't.
Somehow.
Yeah, they had to go to common rail diesels for the Gen 5 Golf and Jetta because of the fact that the PD system couldn't get the emissions low. Volkswagen tried, they couldn't get the emissions low enough. So you're talking about your wonderful Mark IV TDI 130 PD. What colour is it?
Silver.
So reflex, that will probably be reflex silver will be the colour. I remember that because I was working for Volkswagen. At that particular moment in time, there was an anniversary edition of the Mark IV Golf GTI, the 25th anniversary, I hasten to add, which had the 18-inch chrome BBS alloy wheels with the good old golf ball 6-speed shifter. So that would be in response to what you have just picked there, good sir. So some nice choices. We both went single-seaters. We both went Volkswagen Golfs. And Snetterton was the first track that came up.
We know what we're talking about, Alex.
Exactly.
We're good at what we do. Let's put it that way.
We know
We've got taste. We've got taste.
Indeed. Zach, where can everybody find you on socials, buddy?
On Instagram, hang on, let me check because it changes every time. It's either Zach Sweeney Comms or it's Zach Sweeney 19. I think I've gone for Zach Sweeney 19. So Instagram, Zach Sweeney SWEENEY 19. Same for Twitter. I'm on TikTok as well, just under Zach Sweeney Commentary. My YouTube is Zach Sweeney. You'll know because it's my face plastered on it, and you'll see my updated showreel that I did a couple of weeks ago with a few of my favourite clips over the course of the last year and a half, because it's been a while since I last done one. I've been putting it off for a while. I've had to teach myself how to edit videos and stuff to be able to do it, but yeah, it's out, and I'm quite happy with it. So yeah, if anyone wants to come and check it out, then yeah, by all means.
Zach, thanks very much for jumping on board for episode 20 of Commentator's Corner. So that's it, another show in the books. We've hit another milestone, folks. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Zach's YouTube and all his socials will be down in the description below, which will include a link to his show reel. So if there's anybody looking for a commentator when I'm not available, give this man a shout. Go on, you need to. But of course, don't forget, you can find us not only on YouTube, but also now, as of episode number 18 with Rob Lewis, we have got Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and new for 2023, Amazon Music and Google Podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, folks. And thank you so much to those listening on the audio-only stream on the platforms I've just mentioned. We'll see you with another guest on episode 21 here on Commentator's Corner. Thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.